Hey everyone, welcome to the Real Estate Reveille, your dose of real estate inspiration. I'm your host, Daniel Colletti, and I'm passionate about helping you unlock the secrets to financial freedom through real estate investing and entrepreneurship. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting on your journey, you'll find practical advice, market insights, and actionable tips to help you build a thriving real estate portfolio. Let's dive into the world of real estate and take your financial future to the next level. Welcome to the Real Estate Reveille. I am here with the mastermind of our mastermind, Ryan Irwin. Ryan, welcome.
Oh, Daniel, thank you. I appreciate the invite, and I'm super excited for this conversation.
I can't say enough about you joining on and love the support I've been getting with the crew. So, well, let's hop on in, man. Just to introduce yourself, can you tell me about yourself, family? What did you do before you got into real estate, and what have you been doing since?
So, I've been an entrepreneur now for over 20 years, and I started my history as in bodybuilding, in fitness and nutrition. And so, my full-time gig right now is I'm a nutrition and fitness coach. And how I got to that point was I started competing when I was young. I was sickly, skinny little kid, and I started, just got into bodybuilding, and I just continued that path and fell in love with it. And then I ended up throughout my career and growing up continuing in that, and I really found myself in it. And so fast forward to, getting married and having kids and everything. And, I actually, got into the industry as into a nutrition store. And at the time, I worked at a bank, which actually ties in well with real estate. And the skills and tools I took away from that still use to this day. But I got into my business, and at the Apex, we had 3 locations. We had a nutrition store, we had a training studio, training people, training clients, and things were going great. However, it was eating me up inside and out. Like I was doing what I loved, but not in the right manner. And so this is
This
where
was
yes.
this was still while you were doing a W-2, right? You're working at a company right now at
Yeah,
that time.
well, so I was working at the bank, and then, I eventually, like, at one of my nutrition stores, my manager said, "Hey, Ryan, um, I've got another job offer, I have to leave." And literally that same day, I went in and I told my boss I put in my 2-week notice. So not really the thing that I would recommend these days, but I jumped right in. So I quit my W-2. That was the first time I quit my W-2, and then I jumped in, and then it just grew and kinda grew into a monster, to be honest with you. And then I realized that this was not my why. I mean, even though it was in the industry that I love, it was not how I wanted to design my lifestyle. It wasn't conducive to my marriage, to my family, or to me, and so it's at that time where I pivoted and I'm like, "Okay, how can I build my business in a way that is part of how I wanna become?" And so I actually went back to a W-2. We ended up, my partners and I, we closed down the stores, went back and did a W-2 as I rebuilt my business, which was coaching. I found coaching through the customers that were walking through the door, and I started talking to them. I'm like, this is what I need to do. It's not necessarily selling supplements and things like that. It's helping them with their whatever goals there are. And so I rebuilt my business for 5 years working this W-2. In the meantime, building up reserves and just, stashing away cash just as a nest egg, if you will, to give myself that leverage to, you know, resign again, like W-2 a second time. And I was able to do that. And then, been coaching full time now in nutrition and fitness. Um,
That's
and
I mean,
fast. Yeah, go ahead.
if I could pause you there, that takes a lot of, introspection and reflection on your part to actually recognize what it was that you want and to change strategies, and so, for those that are listening out there, these are all little steps that Ryan took towards building towards that goal that he envisioned for himself, and so to stop and recognize that that wasn't what you wanted, to change directions, go back to the W-2 so that you could start building a foundation to get to where you wanted to. I mean, that's awesome, and I just wanted to point that out for any listeners who might feel like they're stuck or, like, not getting any momentum, and sometimes it can feel like that day in, day out. You and I have talked about it with the wholesaling journey that I went on and was like, "This isn't working," and but having that big vision and looking forward and just recognizing where to make those changes is huge, right? That sets you down, a different road.
It does, and I'm so thankful for my wife for many reasons, obviously. I mean, we've been married for, over 26 years now, and she has always been super supportive. I love her to death, and she's just, but she's also very honest. And if I get off in one path or the other, she's right there to help, support me, but also help that process. And again, having a crew around me to help keep me accountable and stuff, because you know, I would say, I've got two of my superpowers are I'm driven and I'm consistent, which is fantastic, except being driven and consistent in the wrong direction is not good. So I think having those safety nets or those check marks in place really helps. And then, fast forward, and then after build up my coaching business, I'm like, okay, what's next? Where do I go from here? And the thing I love about coaching is, I mean, it's great cash flow. It's a cash based business. The challenge with that is that you don't really have any hard assets, and so you get crushed on taxes. And so
Mhm.
that's what I heard about from one of my other entrepreneur friends, this thing called real estate. And hey, guess what? There's all these tax benefits. I'm like, cool, I need those. And so that's what kind of led me down that path of real estate.
Yeah, could you talk for a minute about, why are having hard assets important, right? What are the benefits of having assets and some of the tax implications there that fed into that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I'm no tax expert, but I talked to my accountant. I said, hey, what can I do? I've heard about this thing called real estate. And she's like, oh, yeah. We can depreciate that, because at the time I was asking, okay, what can I do to help, improve my taxes right now? And at the time, she's just don't make as much money. And I'm like, well, it's not like I'm raking it in, so that I can't really choose that option. And so that's, when she confirms that, yeah, if you do some, real estate, you buy a rental property, you can hold on to that, can help offset that income. I'm like, oh, cool. That's great. And so, yeah, that really made a lot of sense to me.
That's awesome. And so at this point, you've got the coaching business in place. You had already done at least a partnership with the storefront and the nutrition and coaching piece there. What kind of entrepreneurial training, business management training did you have prior to that?
Yeah, so I had been actually my first foray into entrepreneurship was promoting bodybuilding competitions. And so I had a mentor, and he promoted bodybuilding competitions, and so he took me under his wing and showed me the ropes, and that was really my introduction to entrepreneurship. And so, having that business and then growing that and taking off built up the confidence to say, okay, yeah, hey, here's something that you can create. And really, going back to bodybuilding, I owe a ton to that sport, because that gave me confidence to go out and, just be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I mean, being able to get up in front of hundreds of people in, your underwear, and be able to be judged under these lights and stuff. I mean, you're exposed, and it's all
Yeah.
right. Hey, after doing that, okay, there's nothing I can't do. So that I think those are really kind of what set the stage for that. And then again, as a banker, I did a lot of real estate loans, I did commercial loans, and I saw these business owners and I saw them succeeding and kind of writing their story. I'm like, gosh, I like that. And so learning from a lot of them and hearing their stories again helped give me the confidence and some lessons of how they succeeded. And then, underwriting and doing real estate loans gave me some background on real estate. And my wife, she's like, hey, I understand real estate. There's a house, you buy it, you own it. I can touch it, I can feel it, versus say some other investment strategy that's out there.
Oh, that's awesome. And for anyone who's listening who might be, like, well, I don't have this mentor out there, or I didn't have the bank job where I'm looking at these businesses and providing loans, and uh, how do you actually break into this? And there's so many resources today where you can find the right people to surround yourself with, and it'll all speedball and snowball from there. And you just gotta look at who's around you, and is it where you want to be, and start surrounding yourself with the right people. I can say that Ryan is one of those people for me, along with our group, and it's been awesome. So if you're wondering, well, I don't have that, how do I get that? Get on Facebook, get on, Google the groups, the meetups for what it is that you want to achieve. And when I first conceived of starting a business and realized what it could do for me, it kind of changed how I thought about my future. And I think that everybody can do that, and everybody should do that, honestly. But we get stuck in the 9 to 5 rat race, and all that. And but there's another way to do this, and so that's what's awesome about being an entrepreneur. But all right, so we got to your coaching business, and you're basically a baller. You're raking it in, and you're like, what am I going to do with all this money? And no,
Yeah.
but you're trying to figure out how to do this more wisely and start employing some of that capital, and get some tax sheltering. So take me into a little bit about the how you got into the real estate piece, and where it's gotten to today.
Yeah, well, and I think the other thing is I love what I do. I mean, I do this full time. I was passion working with people, coaching people, nutrition, fitness, lifestyle. I love that. And so I'm not looking for an exit out of there, but I also had to do something that, didn't take me away from that, and so what do I need to do to, keep me available and have the time to do the things I wanted to do? Candidly, I looked at doing day trading,
Mhm.
before I even got into real
I
estate.
did it
And
a
I
little
was
bit.
looking,
Yep.
yeah, I'm like, that will take way too much time. That was an easy no, but, I'm like, "Okay, hey, I can get into this real estate and make it kind of passive," and so that's kinda, where that path led me to, and then, I was able to actually purchase my first properties from my in-laws, and, I knew, like, their house. My wife grew up there, so I knew what exactly I was getting. They loved me enough to give me a great deal, and so that was my first entry point. It's so close to home, so easy to, you know, go over there if I had to, and so I was like, "Okay, cool, I got a rental." And then from there, I was like, "All right, well, I got approached by a bodybuilding buddy who does syndications. And so he's a GP in syndications, and I don't even remember how we started the conversation, but anyway, he said, "Hey, Ryan, this might be something you're interested in." And so in talking to him, I'm like, "Cool, this is so passive. I can do this and I don't have to spend any more time on it." And I think that might be the end of it, right? So I did that. And so I was like, "Okay, cool. I've got one rental and I've got a syndication, so passive, got my time and I can, just keep moving forward." Okay, but then is when all right, I came across Bigger Pockets and BPCon, and then I learned more of what there were for opportunities and what I could do.
That's awesome. And being a limited partner, I think, is one of the great ways to kind of break into real estate from the sidelines with very low risk, but actually, capture some of that return on investment and start to see, oh, there's other ways outside of the stock market that I can actually get a nice return on my investment, and see what's going on, and kind of peek behind the veil of the company. So that's awesome. At this point, what were some of the key team members? Like, who were you going to for advice, trying to surround yourself with, and kind of who evolved as important roles in starting to make and build this real estate pursuit?
Yeah, well, at this point, I really didn't have a ton of knowledge. I went through and I found on I was a huge book person. I love Audible. I mean, and I through Audible is how I found Bigger Pockets. So I didn't find Bigger Pockets like through I think where most people do. I just found it through Audible, and I found this Audible book by some guy named Brandon Turner. And so I started listening to his book when I was on vacation. I took a vacation, my wife and I went out of town, and I was like, okay, one of my goals while I'm on vacation is to like completely digest this book, this audiobook. And I took pages and pages of notes. And so from there, I was like, once I read this book, listened to it, and then I found bigger pockets through that. And so then I just started consuming as much information from there as I can. And then I came across this thing called BPCon, which is a real estate podcast or a conference for those of you that don't know. And I was like, all right, hey, I know enough that I want to, invest in myself to grow. And so I invested in that conference and I didn't know anybody. I just some guy from Iowa that knows about this much in real estate went to this huge conference in San Diego. The whole goal was to learn more and immerse myself in it and get myself out of my comfort zone. Because again, back to bodybuilding, that's always been a winning strategy to get uncomfortable. And so I could get very uncomfortable with going there, knowing nobody, and with the goal of trying to just expand my knowledge base and my network.
No, that's awesome, man. And, you know, Ryan was just on Bigger Pockets Rookie podcast. So, go give a listen to that episode if you haven't already. And he'll deep dive into what he's done there. But I know, you've done some burrs, you're doing multiple flips now. You've been an LP on a syndication and kind of dabbled in a few different things here. And that's awesome. And so you've got those going on. You've got the coaching business going on. Can you talk a little bit about how you have these structured? And we're not tax experts again. We are not attorneys, but you dive into this stuff and you learn as much as you can because you're trying to figure out how to set it up right for yourself, both for asset protection and liability purposes, as well as making sure you're taking the appropriate tax benefits. And so, can you talk a little bit about that for us?
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, I've had an LLC with my coaching business for a long time, to run it through that. And so I knew enough to keep this separate from that. And so, my our first, investment property is just through my wife and I's name individually, and we actually did that two other times. And so we still own three properties right now. One's a duplex in our names personally. However, when I started flipping, then I created another LLC because I wanted to keep that from separate from my holding company, my real estate that I've been holding, and also, of course, from my nutrition business. And so created another LLC for that to run all the flipping business and whatnot through. And so I do have a business partner with that. And he's the, construction background, coordinating with the contractors, helping with the rehab and stuff. Because again, like I said, I want to keep, my time allocated to how I need to. And so we created that LLC. And then I have another LLC that I form, which is going to be my holding company to convert these other properties that I have and future properties that I have as long-term assets. I'm going to put them in that LLC because, again, taxation is different and things like that versus like the flipping side of things. So just going to have these different pots that they go in.
No, that's great. And, for the listeners out there, when you're thinking about these things, you got a couple different types of entities. You can be a sole proprietor, which is basically just you doing business. But you've got your limited partnerships, which can be put together between you and another individual or several individuals. And then you have a limited liability company, which is the simplest business structure that you can employ. It's fairly new. And so there's a lot of benefits in using that asset compared to the most complex one, which is the corporation. And part of that is just because of how new it is. There's less case law behind it, and so it tends to support the LLC owner, from my understanding, talking to attorneys, and that'll vary based off of what state you set it up in as well. And when you create these businesses, you are literally creating another entity that is separate from yourself, right? And so if something happens, particularly like flipping, right? Flipping a house, there's a lot of things that can happen there, whether it's a worker who's getting injured on the job or, down the road, somebody sues you for a water main that busted because it wasn't put in properly. whatever it may be. It separates you personally from that business activity, and protects anything that you may own personally if found liable. And so there's a lot that goes into that, but just kind of a quick rundown of those different entity types and why it's important to go in there. And then you've got a couple of different tax elections, and this is where getting into real estate gets really fun, because when you start to buy properties, you start to learn about depreciation and what that can do for your income on these properties, especially if it's in the passive category versus active income. So I just wanted to break that down real quick for the listeners. You know, how much of this has been a learning experience? How much of this, what are you benefiting from these factors in your business right now?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, everything is a learning experience. And, I think that again, it's lifestyle design. I mean, if I look at my why factors, the three things that I'm focused on, which is my faith, my family, and my freedom. I mean, it's helping me take me down that path. And I'm not like looking to build this huge empire. If it happens, great. But the biggest thing is that I want to have things on my terms. And so it's a way to do that. I think all of us, should look at, okay, what's down the road, what's the long-term vision, not just the front, what's in front of me, but like long term and make sure, steering the ship towards that.
Yeah, no, that's great, and you mentioned that in the BP rookie episode, and uh, I loved that outlook on it, because that's important, right? If you want to go out there and you want to be build the empire and be the, I don't know, megalomaniac who's going to rule the world, and good for you, go out there and do it. But recognizing what's important to you and then setting up the structure and business pursuits to support that is important. And when we did the prep for this, you indicated you are financially free. Is that right?
How I define it, I think there's a lot of ways you could define that. And so I
Yeah.
think the fact that, I'm fully self-employed, I was able to leave my W-2. Now I can't just go out on the beach and drink Mai Tais, nor quite frankly would I want to, but I have the ability to work for myself and to do the things that I want to do. So I think that, how I would define financially free, I would say yes. So, but again, going back to passive income, the more of that I get, then the more flexibility that gives me to continue in that pursuit.
No, that's awesome, man. And that's what's important, right? You live the lifestyle that you want, and you're able to do the activities that you want to do. So kudos there. And we are approaching the new year and looking ahead, and starting to visualize, all right, what are those 1 year goals, 3 year goals, 5, 10 years, whatever it may be. And I know you and we've talked about mindset and how important that is, and we've got our intention journals and building that out and breaking that down. So what's ahead for you? What are you trying to achieve in the next year or two?
Yeah, lots of things. I would say, from a business standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, my thing, you know, my mission is to create an impact on people's lives that's sustainable and helps them live the lifestyle they want to achieve. And so, obviously nutrition and fitness is a huge part of that, but also just pouring into them. I do a lot of things to help, give them that insight because there's all these different spokes of the wheel of life, if you will. And so, financial is a big one, relationships, career, professional, all of those things, physical, come together. And so if one of those is falling down, it affects the other. And so just really, again, giving and growing tools to help my clients in all of those areas. So that'd be one from a real estate side of things, just continue to make smart investments, just to make sure that, I'm still moving things forward, but not in a way that I get over my head or get misdirected. I'm also going to start doing some private lending. I've got a self-directed IRA. And so starting to do that. So that's kind of the big thing in 2025 that I'm going to start doing is doing some private lending. And then, yeah, just again, I know it's cliche, but just, continue to make an impact on others and however I can in this world.
That's awesome, man. And yeah, and I know you mentioned to me before that you're also working on building credit within the company so that you can, employ that in other ways and between the lending and doing that, that's an awesome way to expand your capability financially and what you can do. And so, you got the lending going on, you've got your coaching pursuits that you're going to continue with. Is there a particular avenue within real estate that you could see yourself leaning towards? I know you got a few flips going. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still definitely gonna continue to, working on flips and doing flips with my partner and, taking that revenue and then, you know, reinvesting it and either doing others or if the property that comes up that makes sense, hold on to it. I'm interested in either doing that with maybe a duplex multifamily or something that would make a good STR because there's again tax incentives for STRs, short-term real estate. So looking at those opportunities and kind of looking at some angles from that side of things and just see what makes sense. But again, I want to then once I get to a certain point, okay, start like paying down these mortgages, as rates are hopefully going to continue to go down some, not to where they were, a couple of years ago, but come down a little bit, refinance some of these properties again, bring the rate down and be able to pay those down more aggressively. That'd be the goal.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We're supposed to hear something. Well, by the time this here airs, hopefully we will have seen another rate drop. At least 25 basis points, and moving forward, getting to maybe some of the 5% on some mortgages would be nice to see again. And then rent's going to continue to go up. So hopefully we get some good market changes here in the next year. Talk to me a little bit about your process with this. So, what do you? I know you've got your journal. What do you like to do in terms of breaking down these goals and to making it achievable? Right. What has helped you stay on track with your goals?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to determine your why factors, why you do what you do. And, really this is probably no more than three things that really drives you to do the things that you do. And so getting clarity on that is crucial. So once you've got that though, the first step is always go back and review. History gives us a window of the future. And so going back and seeing, okay, how did things go in the past year? If I'm goal setting for a year ahead, I want to look at the past year. If I'm looking at a month ahead, I'm looking at the past month. If I'm looking 5 years ahead, I'm looking at the past 5 years. How have things been going? Am I on the right path? If not, what do we need to do to correct that? Okay. And so I'm going through everything, going through my journals, going through my calendar, going through my financials, all of those things to see, okay, how did it go? And from there, I do an assessment. I go through and again, going back to those 5 areas of my focus categories, if you will, and see, okay, I score myself on each one of those. How am I doing on those? Where I'm at right now. And then based on that, then, I write a narrative, like a story, like a story style, like summary. So if somebody were to read it, they say, okay, this is how Ryan did last year, without going through all the crazy things that I did to figure all that out. And then from there, I start doing the goal setting, and I focus on what I call no more than six game changers. These are six stretch goals, if you will, that really will just completely make that year unbelievable. And so they're the home runs, the big swings. And so once I've got those no more than six established, then I start breaking down into category goals. This is where the brainstorming comes in. It's okay, just try to scatter shot mini goals, if you will, that helps me achieve those big game changers. And once I've got a list of 10 of each, so I could have 50 small mini goals. Then from there, I narrow it down to my top 10 list, my top 10, goals that I want to shoot for that again are going to really drive the ship forward. And then from there, I write what I call three banner goals. So three main focus goals that that a lot of those top tens will go filter into. So I can really, again, focus on these big three things that I'm looking at every single day. When I write in my journal, I pull out my sheet that I printed these off on. So I can see these staring at me at the face every single day. It reminds me of what I'm working towards. And so that's my process. And I know I flew through that. It's a lot, but it's a lengthy process. And I think that's important because it really helps clarify things, but it also puts a structure in place that, we all have things that we gravitate to. And so this way, again, going back and doing a review and seeing where you're struggling at, this way I can focus more on those areas and not do what's comfortable and just focus on the things that come easy.
Yeah, no, and it's been incredibly important for me in terms of, like you said, reflecting on how I did with that this past year and looking at, all right, where were times or goals that I did well on, and where maybe did I fall short and why. And one thing that you kind of just have to ask yourself is, how badly do you want something, right? And kind of going back to your point on why. And is this, you know, do you want to be a millionaire? Of course. Who's going to say no, right? Like I want to be a millionaire, but what are you willing to do to achieve that, right? And you can kind of plan this all out. Okay, if this is the goal, when do I want to accomplish this? Whether it's 1 year, 2 years, whatever, 5 years, and then you break it down into those smaller steps. And once you get down to, okay, now I'm within a year, now I need to accomplish it within this quarter, within this month, within this week, tomorrow. And is that next step, that most important next step, is it achievable? And are you willing to do it? And I have found that when you can break it down to that granular step, it has taken some of the lofty, ambiguous goal setting that's out there. Like, oh, how the heck am I going to be a millionaire? How am I going to, make $1 million? Well, it doesn't start with making $1 million. It starts with going and reading a blog or watching a video to improve yourself or picking up the phone to network with that person that you need to talk to next. And I think you mentioned this on the podcast from Iowa Real Estate Investors was, not getting distracted by whether it's reels or Netflix or whatever, those things that grab us. And, I did the 9 to 5 and it's time to go home and I don't want to work anymore. And it's like, well, how badly do you want things? What are those most important next steps? And you just got to know that for yourself. And to your point earlier, right? You don't want to be a billionaire necessarily, but you've got certain financial goals. And so racing to a point where it's deteriorating your current lifestyle, which you're enjoying and is okay, you also have to be aware of that. And so I guess to wrap this up, taking that time to be intentional about what it is that you want and how you're going to pursue that makes all the difference. And so I know I got a question for you, and I know you're ready with it. So what's your tool that you're using to do this in, right? I know you got a journal that you like to use. I've got my own.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about this and yeah, I definitely the habit tracker, and this is my new one, just cracked it out of the box last week. And, I think this is key and whatever it is for an individual, whatever they need, it sets them up for success. But tracking those key metrics, those key habits, I think that's really the overarching goal there is to do that. Cause again, being intentional, like you said, the intentional journal, whatever it is. I mean, this one's Living Your Best Year Ever by Darren Hardy. And so no affiliation in it. I love it. I think that is a huge tool. And if I can offer a second tool, I mean, using a virtual assistant, and that can be overwhelming for a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be. I think a lot of times people think that, oh, I have to hire another full-time person. How am I going to pay for that? Well, it's not that at all. It's just looking at those tasks to offload where can you put your resources and your time better. And again, as you scale and whatever that looks like for an individual, I mean, even if somebody has a W-2 and nothing's wrong with that and they love it, but they're trying to focus on their health and fitness. Fantastic. Okay. What can you hire out to help you focus more on the things that you want to do? Your family time or your health or whatnot. If I want to grow my real estate portfolio, okay, hey, what can I have somebody else help me with to make that even more efficient? So I think those two things right there, a habit tracker, and then going out and getting a VA or some form of delegation tool is really key.
Yeah, no, and we've talked about this before, and though it was short lived, having a VR in my or a VA in my wholesaling company was kind of a game changer in when you think about that 80-20 rule, right? Spending your time on the 20% most, whether it's cash or goal producing activities, and then offloading that 80% to somebody else, right? And whether you want to think of it as a regular virtual assistant who's helping you out on that, or you could think of a freelancer if it's an individual task. There are so many ways in today's day and age, and I found mine on Upwork. This guy lived in Nigeria. I paid him starting $6 an hour, and then $7 an hour after the first quarter or first month when he was once he proved his value, and he was phenomenal. I was like, listen, man, if I'm sorry to let you go because you're doing great work, but we're actually pivoting strategies and not going to wholesale anymore. And no, I 100% agree. There's so many good resources out there, and you just got to ask yourself, what are the things I should be doing, or I alone need to be doing, and if everything else, you got to figure out a way to outsource it and get it off your plate so you can focus on the most important things for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I got also not affiliated, obviously, and he's not even there anymore. But I got Brandon Turner's Bigger Pockets Intention Journal, which I use, but I'm actually transitioning to Brendan Bouchard's annual journal, which they all do similar things. But the point is, you get into them, you set your intentions, and you stick to those goals, and you will be amazed at the progress that you can actually achieve when you stay consistent with those.
Absolutely. It's a game changer. It really is. One of the tools I think that I use consistently, it's boring, but my Google Calendar. I mean, I schedule everything. I mean, blocks. I schedule when I eat, I schedule when I train, I schedule when I go to sleep. I mean, I'm squeezing as much juice out of that day as possible. I mean, that is my mantra, my logo is every day counts. And my goal is when I go to bed at night, did I make this day count? And, that's if I can go to bed saying that, then that's a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, man, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the Real Estate Reveille. Before you go, like you mentioned, you're an avid reader and audiobook listener, as am I. What's the best book that you read this year
Oh
or
man.
listened?
This is tough. This is tough. Going back to what you said earlier, what you asked earlier about what training did I have? This is what literally probably just completely changed my life because as I went back to corporate America, I had a 45-minute commute one way, so hour and a half both ways. And that's what I would do is I would listen to audiobooks and again, using that 10,000 hour rule, I probably just, I probably got a college degree, another college degree just by listening to all those books. And so that really helped just set me forward in this where I'm at right now. But man, if I were to narrow it down, I'm a voracious reader. It's hard. It's a hard question, but I would say probably this year would be Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. You know, there's been I mean, I've got 5 books on my list here. I was like, "How do I pick one?" But I'd say, for somebody to kinda get out of their rut and say, "How can I do this?" I think that would probably be one of the most beneficial books that they could do.
Love it. Yeah, and it lines up well with what we're talking about. And then what's next on the docket? What are you reading next?
Oh, man. So, right now, I've got, Scaling Smart by the Fed Keys. I've also got I mean, I've got a list of books that I wanna to read. I've got Lend to Live. I wanna read, Shoe Dog. I think Phil, what's his last name? The guy who started Nike. I've got a lot of books that are on my radar to read. And so constantly reading. My goal is to read 30 minutes 5 times a week. That's my minimum. So yeah, we'll keep pushing that quota forward.
Good goal. Good goal. Love it. All right, man. What do you want to leave the listeners with, and how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I'm easy to find online, but you can go to my website, which is impactactioncoaching.com. You can find me on Instagram. I've got both bodybuilding and real estate side. My real estate side is Invest in Flex. Also, I'm on Bigger Pockets forums, and so whether you're looking for some guidance. I mean, again, I just wanted to give back and help any way I can.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Hey, Daniel, thank you again for this and the opportunity. It was a pleasure.